There is a war being fought right now, not on the streets, not in the halls of politics, but within you. A war not of guns or fire, but of attention. Every second your mind is being pulled, pinged, prodded, and poisoned by a world that profits from your distraction. But I ask you today, not as a voice of reason, but as a whisper from your own soul, what if you took it back? What if in the middle of this storm, in the chaos of comparison, the endless scroll, the buzzing, blinking, burning distractions, you chose to stand still? Oh yes, I know what the world says. You must keep up. You must consume more, do more, be more. But I say no. You must become less of what the world has made you and more of what you were created to be. High voice rising, eyes ablaze, distraction is the modern battlefield. It's not fought with weapons or in open fields, but in our minds. Every moment of every day. In this digital age, the enemy doesn't need to knock on your door. It lives in your pocket, on your wrist, beside your bed, whispering constantly for your attention. A buzz here, a ping there, a feed that never ends. Each sound, each flicker, each red notification is a carefully crafted hook pulling you out of the present and into a realm of endless consumption. It is not just a convenience anymore. It is a system designed to capture, fragment, and commodify your focus. We have entered a time where our greatest battles are not external, they are within. The mind, once a sanctuary, is now under siege. Companies and platforms are not simply competing for your money. They're competing for your thoughts, your time, your attention span. And why? Because where your attention goes, your life flows. What owns your attention owns your direction. You can feel it. When you pick up your phone to check one thing and 30 minutes later, you've forgotten why you started. When your to-do list stays undone because your thumb can't stop scrolling. When you sit to be still and your mind screams for distraction like a child denied its favorite toy. Distraction has become so normalized that silence feels uncomfortable. We reach for noise as a reflex. We fear the void of no input. The moment we sit without stimulation, we feel anxious, fidgety, lost. That's no accident. It's conditioning. The battlefield has trained you not to fight, but to surrender, gently, passively, willingly. And while you are being distracted, something more dangerous is happening. Your identity is drifting. You are no longer anchored in your own thoughts, your own desires, your own voice. You are echoing trends, consuming opinions, forgetting how to listen to yourself. The mind that once dreamed, created, and discerned is now overloaded, overstimulated, and numb. We've traded focus for fragments, depth for dopamine. And we don't even notice the exchange because the enemy is subtle. It doesn't come with alarms, it comes with convenience. Distraction doesn't demand, it seduces. It doesn't force, it suggests. That's why it's so dangerous. It slips in quietly, replacing your highest goals with momentary gratification. It doesn't have to destroy you. It only needs to delay you, to detour you long enough that you forget what you were made for. To reclaim the mind in this era is to engage in war. Not a war of aggression, but a war of awareness. Because distraction is not just external, it becomes internal. It rewires how you think, how you prioritize, how you relate to yourself. It trains you to react, not reflect, to skim, not study, to respond, not rest. And as this happens, the very things that make you human, your focus, your discipline, your imagination, are worn thin. This battlefield has no neutral ground. If you are not intentionally protecting your focus, it is being hijacked. If you are not aware, you are already under influence. You might think you're in control, but you're being steered slowly, subtly, by algorithms that know your impulses better than you do. They don't need your permission. They already have your patterns. They study what keeps you looking, clicking, craving more. And every click is another step away from your power, your clarity, your calling. But make no mistake, the battle is not unwinnable. Your mind was not made to be enslaved. It was made to lead. But it will not lead until you recognize what you're up against. Because you cannot win a battle you don't know you're fighting. And you cannot reclaim your mind if you believe it's still yours when it's not. Stillness is the path to self-mastery. In a world that moves at the speed of light, where urgency is glorified and business is worn like a badge of honor, stillness is almost seen as rebellion. But it is in stillness, not motion, where the soul gathers its strength. It is not through noise that we find ourselves, but through quiet. It's not in the rush that clarity comes. It's in the pause. Most people run faster when they feel lost, but that only deepens the confusion. Stillness, on the other hand, is where direction is revealed. There is a reason the world fears stillness. It is not because it is empty, but because it is full. Full of truth, full of reflection. Full of the things we've tried to avoid. When you sit in stillness, you come face to face with your real self, not the curated one, not the version that performs for the world, but the one who carries the questions, the doubts, the pain, and the potential. In stillness, there are no distractions to hide behind, There is only you and what you've been running from. But within that encounter is the doorway to power, because you cannot master what you will not face. Stillness is not inaction, it is not laziness, it is intentional restraint, it is sacred discipline. To be still in the age of distraction is to be fierce. It takes strength to not reach for the noise, it takes courage to not fill the silence, and it takes wisdom to know that silence is not absence, it is presence. The presence of something deeper, something eternal, something that cannot be accessed while you are rushing to keep up with everything else. The greatest breakthroughs do not come in chaos, they are born in calm. Innovation, insight, intuition, these are the fruits of a still mind. The ones who lead with clarity in this noisy world are not the loudest. They are the ones who have learned to be quiet long enough to hear something real. It is in stillness that you begin to remember. You remember what matters. You remember who you are. You remember that your worth is not in your performance, your followers, or your productivity. It's found in your being, and your being is only fully known when you allow it space to breathe. In the silence, distractions begin to lose their grip. The cravings that once pulled so hard start to feel empty. The opinions that once shaped your choices fade into irrelevance. You stop reacting to everything and begin responding with intention. That is the beginning of mastery. Mastery does not start with control over others or external success. It begins with inner alignment. A soul that is anchored does not sway with every trend. A mind that is still does not need constant reassurance. A heart that is quiet can hear the subtle signals of purpose. Stillness teaches you to observe without judging, to feel without fleeing, to think without spiraling. It is a place of radical honesty. And from that honesty, true change can emerge. Not the surface level change that pleases the crowd, but the deep transformation that redirects the course of a life. Without stillness, you are a puppet to the world around you. With stillness, you become a student of your own soul. It is not how many tasks you complete that determines your growth, but how deeply you are rooted while completing them. And roots do not grow in motion. They grow in the dark, in the quiet, in the still. It is there that strength is formed, not in what is seen, but in what is cultivated unseen. That is why stillness is not just a tool, it is a practice, a posture, a path. The most powerful people in the world are not those who have mastered everything outside of them. They are those who have mastered the stillness within. Presence is more powerful than perfection. In a world obsessed with flawless outcomes and curated appearances, it's easy to believe that success lies in getting everything just right. But the truth is, perfection is an illusion, a constantly moving target that drains your energy and erodes your joy. Presence, on the other hand, is real, it's grounded. It brings power, connection, and clarity in a way perfection never can. To be fully present is to bring all of yourself into a moment, not the edited version, not the ideal version, but the real you. And that is where transformation begins. Perfection demands performance. It feeds on fear, the fear of not being enough, of being judged, of being seen without your mask. Presence, however, requires honesty. It says, this is where I am. This is what I feel. This is who I am now. That kind of authenticity doesn't need to be polished. It needs to be practiced. When you are present, people feel you. They don't connect with your perfection. They connect with your presence. They connect with your humanity, your sincerity, your energy in the now. Perfection keeps you focused on the future or trapped in the past. It always says, when I fix this, then I'll be enough. When I get there, then I'll be worthy. It delays your peace, your power, and your participation in your own life. Presence says, now is the time. It doesn't require your life to be flawless. It requires your attention. It demands that you show up, and showing up, truly, without the need to impress or hide, is one of the most courageous things you can do in a culture that rewards the mask over the mirror. Presence allows you to listen, not just to others but to yourself. It allows you to notice the subtle things, the tension in your body, the truth beneath your words, the difference between what you're doing and what you actually want. You cannot master yourself if you are never with yourself. You cannot lead others if you are not fully here, and you cannot grow if you are constantly trying to be something you are not yet. Presence makes room for growth, because it makes room for reality, and only in reality can change begin. The pursuit of perfection often becomes a cage. It keeps you stuck, afraid to make mistakes, afraid to be seen in progress. But presence gives you permission to be in process, to learn, to stumble, to adjust. It opens the door for creativity, for depth, for breakthrough. Because when you are present, you stop obsessing over outcomes and start engaging with the process. And the process is where life happens. It's where wisdom is formed. It's where character is built. Presence also frees the people around you. When you stop performing, you give others permission to breathe. You create space for vulnerability. You invite trust. No one feels safe around someone pretending to be perfect because perfection leaves no room for error. But presence says, you're human and so am I. And in that mutual recognition, real connection is born. Being present doesn't mean everything around you is calm. It means you have chosen to anchor yourself in the moment, regardless of the noise. It is a decision you make over and over, to bring your attention back to what matters most. You can be present in a conversation, in a task, in your thoughts. You can be present with your pain instead of running from it. You can be present with your joy instead of rushing past it. And the more you choose presence, the more power you gather. Presence brings clarity because you see things as they are, not as you fear or fantasize them to be. It brings strength because you stop leaking energy into things beyond your control. And it brings peace because you stop fighting to be somewhere or someone else. Presence is not about perfection. It's about showing up fully awake, fully alive, and fully available to the moment you're in. Your attention is your greatest currency. In today's world, attention is no longer something passive. It is a resource, a target, a commodity. Every major platform, every advertisement, every notification on your device is competing not for your money at first, but for your attention. Because where your attention goes, everything else follows. Your thoughts, your time, your emotions, your decisions, all of it flows from the direction of your focus. What you give attention to, you empower. What you consistently attend to, you begin to become. This is why attention is not just about what you see, but about what shapes you. People often underestimate the value of their attention. They treat it casually, giving it away to anything that asks. But attention is influence. It is the most sacred kind of power you carry. It is the driver of your habits, the source of your internal narratives, and the birthplace of your beliefs. The things you repeatedly pay attention to are the things that program your identity. If you spend hours feeding your mind with fear, comparison, anger, or fantasy, those things don't just stay on a screen, they take root inside you. The digital world is engineered to hijack your attention. It's not a neutral space. It is a battlefield of algorithms designed to pull you in, keep you engaged, and subtly shift your priorities. The more time you give it, the more power it gains over you. This is why attention must be guarded, not fearfully but wisely, not with paranoia but with discernment. Because if you are not intentional, your attention will be spent on things that do not align with your values, your vision, or your purpose. And when your attention is scattered, your life becomes fragmented. Attention is the gateway to presence. Without attention, you can be physically somewhere but mentally nowhere. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. You can be working on something important but mentally lost in something irrelevant. Regaining control of your attention is one of the most important acts of self-leadership. It is not about becoming rigid or overly disciplined. It's about recognizing the value of your mental energy and deciding to direct it toward what matters most. Every day you wake up with a limited amount of mental currency. How you spend it determines the quality of your day. Every time you switch tasks unnecessarily, you pay an attention tax. Every time you get pulled into drama, distractions, or meaningless scrolling, you're handing over your power. But when you focus, truly focus, on a single task, a single conversation, a single goal, you harness an energy that most people never tap into. You activate the part of yourself that is capable of deep thought, creative flow, and meaningful progress. Attention also reveals your priorities. If you want to know what you truly value, look at what you consistently give your attention to. Not what you say is important, but what actually receives your time and focus. This can be uncomfortable, but it's necessary, because it's easy to claim certain goals or ideals, but your attention exposes the truth. And once you become aware of that truth, you can begin to shift. You can choose to reorient your attention toward what aligns with your highest self, your deepest purpose. In relationships, your attention is your presence. When you give someone your full attention, they feel seen, heard, valued. When you withhold it, even unintentionally, the connection suffers. In your work, attention is your excellence. It determines whether you operate at a surface level or whether you're deep enough to produce something meaningful. In your inner life, attention is your awareness. It helps you notice your thoughts, your reactions, your emotional patterns, things that usually run on autopilot. Attention is the beginning of transformation. You cannot change what you do not observe. You cannot grow what you do not water. You cannot heal what you never notice. That is why protecting your attention is not selfish. It is foundational. When you master where your attention goes, you begin to master where your life flows. Choose purpose over noise daily. In a world where noise is constant and endless, choosing purpose is a radical act. Noise is everywhere. It comes in through your phone, your inbox, your conversations, your scrolling. It demands your reaction. It wants your time. It pulls at your insecurities. Noise tells you to be faster, louder, more visible. It offers opinions without depth, urgency without meaning, activity without direction. But purpose is quiet. Purpose doesn't scream. It doesn't compete for your attention. It waits for your recognition. And because it's quieter, you must listen differently to hear it. Noise is reactive. Purpose is intentional. Noise keeps you busy. Purpose makes you effective. The danger of noise is that it feels productive. You're constantly responding, checking, moving. But motion without meaning is just exhaustion. Purpose is what brings alignment to your actions. It is the internal compass that reminds you who you are and what you're here for. Without it, you're like a leaf in the wind, always moving, never grounded. With it, even the smallest step carries weight. Choosing purpose over noise means you will often be out of step with the world. While others chase trends, you build roots. While others measure success by popularity, you measure it by alignment. While others are addicted to instant validation, you're cultivating long-term vision. That difference can feel lonely at times, but it's also liberating, because when you choose purpose, you stop living for reaction and start living with intention. This choice is not made once, it's made daily, sometimes hourly. The noise will not go away, and it will not get quieter on its own. You have to decide moment by moment what deserves your energy. You have to ask yourself constantly, is this noise, or is this purpose? Is this feeding my ego or fueling my mission? Am I reacting out of fear or responding from clarity? These questions are simple, but they cut deep. They expose what's real. Purpose is not always glamorous. It often looks like saying no to good things so you can say yes to the right thing. It looks like silence when everyone else is speaking. It looks like perseverance when no one is watching. Purpose doesn't need an audience. It doesn't require applause. It doesn't chase recognition. It moves with conviction. And that's why it's hard. Because so much of today's world is designed to reward noise. The louder you are, the more attention you get. But attention without purpose is empty. Choosing purpose also means knowing what you're not called to. It means understanding your limits, your season, your lane. The noise wants you to do everything. It wants you to spread yourself thin. It praises multitasking and glorifies burnout. But purpose calls you to focus. It asks you to go deep, not wide. It values excellence over exposure. It trusts process over pressure. When you live by purpose, you begin to withdraw from the frantic rhythm of the world. You slow down, you listen more, you choose less. But each choice is weighted with intention. Noise is fueled by insecurity. It says, look at me, don't forget me, approve of me. Purpose is fueled by identity. It says, I know who I am, I know why I'm here, I know what I'm building. That difference is everything. Because when you are rooted in purpose, criticism doesn't derail you. Distraction doesn't detour you. Delays don't define you. You understand that your calling isn't fragile. It's not determined by the latest headline or trend. It's anchored in something eternal. Choosing purpose over noise demands discipline. It requires boundaries. It requires rest. It requires tuning out the world so you can tune into what truly matters. It requires silence, solitude, and stillness. It's not always exciting, but it is always fulfilling. Because when you choose purpose, you're not just surviving the day. You're building a life. You're living on purpose for a purpose with purpose. Discipline is the bridge between knowing and becoming. Many people know what they should do. They know what habits would make them stronger, what thoughts they need to change, what steps they must take. They know what kind of person they want to become. But knowledge alone does not transform anyone. Information is only potential. It is discipline that makes it real. It is the daily, unseen, often uncelebrated choice to act on what you know that turns vision into reality. Without discipline, your intentions remain trapped in the realm of what could be, never crossing over into what is. Discipline is not about harsh control, it is about sacred alignment. It is saying yes to your future self, even when your current self craves ease. It is choosing the path that leads to growth, even when it's uncomfortable. Discipline is not the enemy of freedom, it is the foundation of it. Without it, you become a slave to impulse. With it, you reclaim your power to choose what matters most over what feels good in the moment. Every time you honor a commitment to yourself, no matter how small, you build the muscle of integrity. You prove to your own soul that you are trustworthy. People often wait for motivation, but discipline doesn't depend on how you feel. It's not swayed by your mood, your circumstances, or your convenience. Discipline is born from clarity. When you are clear on your purpose, you stop negotiating with distractions. You don't entertain excuses. You don't let feelings vote on your future. You act not because it's easy, but because it's aligned. You don't need to be extreme, just consistent. A small act done daily is more powerful than a grand gesture done occasionally. Repetition becomes rhythm, and rhythm becomes identity. Discipline reveals what you truly believe. If you say you value your health but don't make time for movement or rest, your habits contradict your words. If you claim to want clarity but fill every quiet space with noise, your actions betray your intention. Discipline is how you close the gap between what you say and what you live. It is how you embody your values, not just express them. And that embodiment creates alignment. Alignment brings peace. Peace creates strength. Discipline is not just for the big things. It lives in the smallest decisions. Waking up when you said you would. Speaking with kindness even when irritated. Returning to your breath when your thoughts start to spiral. Finishing what you start. Choosing the hard conversation instead of pretending everything's fine. These are not glamorous acts, but they are sacred ones. They shape your character. They prepare you for moments you cannot predict. They become the foundation for your resilience. In the age of distraction, discipline becomes even more vital. The world pulls you in 100 directions. It sells shortcuts and applauds instant gratification. But discipline is not interested in shortcuts. It is not in a rush. It knows that anything lasting must be built with care. It doesn't fear slow progress. It fears wasted potential. Discipline is patient. It is quiet. It does not demand attention. It doesn't need recognition. It thrives in the shadows, but its fruit is seen in the light. Discipline also brings clarity. When you eliminate what is unnecessary, you make room for what truly matters. When you do what needs to be done instead of what you feel like doing, your mind becomes sharper. Your emotions become more steady. Your focus becomes a weapon. You stop reacting to everything and start creating with intention. You're no longer swayed by every trend or tossed by every mood. You become anchored, grounded, directed. The bridge from who you are now to who you are called to be is not built in a day. It's built moment by moment, choice by choice. Discipline is what carries you across that bridge. It's not always loud, but it's always effective. It's not always visible, but it's always working. And over time it rewrites your identity. Not just as someone who knows, but as someone who becomes. Stillness is a strength, not a weakness. In a culture addicted to noise, speed, and constant movement, stillness is often misunderstood. People equate being still with being lazy, being idle, being unproductive. But true stillness is not the absence of action. It is the fullness of awareness. It is choosing to pause not because you lack direction, but because you are rooted in something deeper than momentum. Stillness is where clarity is born. It is where wisdom begins to rise. It is where you remember who you are beneath the layers of pressure, performance, and pretense. Stillness requires courage. It is not always peaceful at first. The moment you stop moving, the noise inside begins to surface. Thoughts you've been avoiding, emotions you've been suppressing, questions you've been delaying, all of them rise up in the silence. And this is why so many people avoid stillness. Not because they're too busy, but because they're afraid of what they'll find when they're no longer distracted. But that is exactly where the transformation begins. When you sit with your thoughts instead of running from them. When you breathe through the tension instead of numbing it. When you listen instead of react. Stillness teaches you to respond instead of react. It creates space between stimulus and response. In that space you can choose. You can observe instead of absorb. You can discern instead of be driven. Most of the damage we do, to ourselves and to others, happens in moments of reactivity. Stillness doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start seeing more clearly. It means you don't let urgency hijack your peace. It means you allow time for your deeper wisdom to rise above the surface level noise. In stillness, your inner world becomes visible. You begin to notice your patterns. You recognize your triggers. You see the stories you've been repeating to yourself without question. And once you see those things, you can change them. You can question them. You can reframe them. But you can't transform what you're not willing to face. Stillness gives you the courage to face it. It gives you the space to process pain instead of projecting it. It gives you permission to rest without guilt, knowing that rest is not weakness, it's preparation. Stillness is also where intuition awakens. There are answers that will never come from outside of you. They are not found in another article, another opinion, another scroll through a timeline. They come from within. But your intuition does not shout, it whispers. And you can't hear a whisper when you're drowning in noise. You need stillness. You need silence. You need solitude. Not forever, but enough to reconnect with the deepest voice inside you. The one that knows. The one that doesn't change with trends. The one that's always been there waiting for your attention. Stillness grounds you in the present. It anchors you in reality. It reminds you that you are not your schedule, your status, or your followers. You are a human being, not a human doing. And being, truly being, requires presence. It requires awareness. It requires the ability to pause, to breathe, to observe without judgment. In that kind of presence, You begin to tap into a strength that cannot be taken from you. A strength that is not about force but about depth, not about dominance but about awareness. Stillness is where your real power gathers, not the kind of power that controls others, but the kind that gives you control over yourself. The power to stay grounded in a storm. The power to remain aligned in the face of chaos. The power to choose integrity over impulse. In a world that tells you to hustle until you burn out, stillness says know when to stop, know when to listen, know when to wait. Know that not every breakthrough comes through pushing, some come through pausing. The deepest truths are rarely found in noise. They rise in stillness. They emerge when the dust settles, when the storm passes, when the heart is quiet enough to hear what really matters. In stillness you are not doing less, you are receiving more. You are tuning into something eternal, something unshaken by circumstance, something beyond the surface of performance and perfection. You become what you repeatedly do, not what you occasionally desire. Intentions are important, but they are not enough. Dreams are powerful, but they are only seeds. What determines the harvest is your habits, your daily quiet, consistent choices. This is where transformation lives, not in sudden flashes of inspiration, but in the faithful rhythm of doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. Your character, your identity, your destiny, they are all shaped not by what you wish for in your highest moments, but by what you practice when no one is watching. The habits you cultivate are not neutral. They are either shaping you or shrinking you. Every repeated action is a vote for the person you are becoming. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems, and your systems are built on your habits. If your habits are disordered, your life will be scattered. If your habits are intentional, your life will move in alignment with your values. This is why mastery is not about intensity, it's about consistency. Anyone can push hard for a day. Few can stay committed over months, years, a lifetime. The ones who do are the ones who build something that lasts. What you do daily determines what you believe deeply. Many people try to change their identity by changing their mindset, but mindset follows behavior. If you want to think of yourself as strong, act with strength. If you want to believe you're disciplined, show up when it's hard. Confidence is not a prerequisite, it's a byproduct. When your actions match your aspirations, your self-image begins to shift. When your feet walk in the direction of your vision, your mind starts to catch up. Habits don't just create results, they create belief. The most successful people are not the most talented, they are the most consistent. They've learned the power of showing up, not just when it's convenient, not just when they're motivated, but especially when it's inconvenient, especially when no one else is doing it, especially when it would be easier to quit. That kind of discipline compounds, it builds resilience, it creates momentum. And that momentum eventually becomes identity. You don't just have a habit, you become a person who lives that way. The world often glorifies intensity. It celebrates burnout as commitment, chaos as passion, and unpredictability as creativity. But the truth is, greatness is often quiet. It's found in routines, rhythms, structure. It's built in the early hours, in the deliberate choices, in the disciplined repetitions that others overlook. It's not flashy, but it is effective. It doesn't always get applause, but it gets results. This is the unglamorous side of mastery, the habit of returning to your work, your practice, your purpose, over and over again. Even the smallest habits matter. A single degree of change may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time it completely alters your destination. The way you speak to yourself in the morning, the decision to put your phone away for 30 minutes, the act of writing one sentence, doing one rep, taking one breath. These micro actions accumulate. They build inner credibility. They create patterns. And your patterns become your lifestyle. Habits don't just happen to you, you shape them. They are formed by intention, repetition, and awareness. If your current habits are not aligned with who you want to become, you must interrupt the pattern. You must choose again, not with guilt, but with grace. Change doesn't happen all at once. It happens with one decision, made consistently over time. You don't need to be perfect, you need to be persistent. And when you fall, it's not failure, it's feedback. It's data for your next move. The person you are today is the result of habits you've lived yesterday, and the person you'll become tomorrow is being shaped by the habits you choose now. Every time you act, you are casting a vote. You're not just doing something, you're becoming someone. Let each vote move you toward alignment. Let each repetition reinforce the truth of who you are becoming. Let your habits carry your identity, not your impulses. Let them write the story your future self will thank you for. In a world that constantly demands your attention, distracts your mind, and scatters your energy, the greatest victory is not over others, it is over yourself. Mastery in this age is not about speed, noise, or outward success. It is about choosing purpose over noise, discipline over impulse, stillness over chaos, and alignment over approval. It is about building habits that reflect your highest identity and living from a place of intention, not reaction. You do not rise by accident. You rise by awareness. And when you choose to govern your inner world, your thoughts, your focus, your choices, you begin to move with power that no distraction can steal, no chaos can shake, and no trend can define. Mind over matter is not a slogan, it is a call to rise above what pulls you down, a call to remember that your greatest strength will never be found in the world's applause, but in your daily surrender to what truly matters.